The Texas Rangers spent $500 million 2 years ago and became champions. But what if I told you that ever since doing so, they missed the playoffs in back-to-back seasons, lost one of the greatest coaches of all time, and are now considered one-hit wonders? In the last 2 seasons, they've scored 21% less, have hit 23% less homers. This season, instead of being bad, they were frustrating. Imagine you had the best pitching in baseball, it wasn't close, but you simply could not hit. Whether it was superstar hitters fading away or top prospects failing to make an impact. So how did they go from this
Texas Rangers win the World Series
to now miss the playoffs with the best ERA in baseball, something that has not happened in this decade? To understand what really caused their downfall, we need to look into how the championship Rangers were built and who was building them. Guy in charge of handling the roster over several years was Jon Daniels. He was hired with the team in 2005, becoming the youngest GM in MLB history. Daniels later took over as the team's president of baseball operations in 2013, meaning he was now in control of every hiring, firing, and signing. Daniels' record in the organization from 2006 to 2020 was 1,186 wins and 1,143 losses. They saw 5 playoff appearances, back-to-back World Series in 2010 and 2011, but had no championship to show for it over and over again.
The Blue Jays have eliminated the Rangers.
Years went by, and they were in 2020, 7 years into Daniels' tenure. And this was the worst year yet. They finished 16 games below 500 at 22-38, marking their 4th consecutive losing season and also the 2nd worst record in baseball. The simple answer for why they were losing so many games is because of their 6-24 record on the road, finishing as the worst away record in the league. Whereas when you look at the Rangers' home record, they were 16-14, 2 games above 500. The team's OPS plus was 76, which is considered 24% below the league average. They were, of course, the 2nd lowest scoring lineup in baseball, only ahead of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Arguably the biggest reason for why they struggled was franchise cornerstone Joey Gallo declined in virtually every single important metric.
As Gallo swings and misses.
And the pitching wasn't any better than the hitting, finishing 2020 ranked 24th in baseball. The only thing that they did well was stealing bases, ranking 4th in MLB with a 78% success rate. Though that was not enough to make them a winner, as ownership began to feel like some sort of a change was needed. Instead of flat out firing Jon Daniels, they decided to bring in a former MLB player, now MLB executive Chris Young. Chris was a pitcher on the field for 13 years, playing for 5 different teams with a successful .395 career ERA.
How about Chris Young?
Chris Young was going to provide something new, a new voice, and a new perspective. The organization wanted to see this young team begin to form under this leadership. Owner Ray Davis actually said that he was embarrassed by what had happened in 2020, but was excited about the young players and the plan that they had going forward. But everybody wondered, what was that plan? How were the Rangers going to get back to winning games? They had the 7th worst system in baseball. The future didn't look bright until this happened. Texas happened to call Tampa, and the Rays were willing to give up Nathaniel Lowe, a former top first base prospect who seemingly the Rays didn't value. This trade was major for the Rangers, a great move. But as soon as they did this, they also nearly made the worst mistake of the entire process. They designated outfielder Adolis Garcia for assignment, meaning any team in MLB could put in a waiver claim and sign him. If it wasn't for him clearing waivers, Garcia would have never stayed on the Rangers. Around the same time that this happened, the Rangers announced they were trading their starting shortstop. He was the last person from the last time they had won the World Series, which was years ago. The return for shortstop Elvis Andreas was catcher Jonah Heim, and the plan was for him to become their long-term solution behind the plate. There were still many hopes and desires left unfilled entering 2021, and they were even worse. At 102 losses, they finished last in their division. But it wasn't all bad, as outfielder Joey Gallo picked himself back up after his 2020. He was playing up to an .869 OPS with 25 homers in the first 95 games of the year. But Texas looked at him more as a trade asset, an opportunity to truly improve their future, and they traded him to the New York Yankees. Joey Gallo was never the same player after leaving, but for the Rangers, they got themselves a great player back in the Gallo trade. His name is Ezekiel Duran, a third baseman ranked number 6 on the Yankees prospect list at only 22 years old. But they had a lot to prove in the free agent market that same offseason. Would ownership allow them to spend money to build a team in their vision? According to John Daniels, he said, quote, "Ownership has recommitted recently to support us financially to pay market dollars. We're not in the postseason, obviously, and we haven't been for 5 years. We don't have that advantage.
We're going to have to pay market dollars to get top players, and we're prepared to do so."
He even said in that same interview, "We're going to be discussing players in every category, every position, and every area of the market. But there's nobody that we're going to rule out because of a perceived price tag." And finally, everyone got the news we had all been waiting for.
Semien hammers this one to left. It is high enough to get over the wall.
Minutes later, they added outfielder Cole Calhoun on a $5.2 million deal. But undoubtedly, this next move overshadowed that. A 4-year deal worth $56 million, starting pitcher, career 4.6 ERA, John Gray. The deal overall looked good, but it was still extremely risky. Because if we go back to 2021, he was not close to being good. What you were paying for is a player who had shown success in the past. At least they had added a starting pitcher, and an outfielder, and an infielder. You'd think they'd be done, but Texas was still eyeing one more star, one more superstar. That player would either be Rockies shortstop Trevor Story or Dodgers shortstop Corey Seager. Either player was great. Story was a Gold Glove winner, and Seager had won a World Series and a World Series MVP. The Rangers' negotiations were moving fast, finally pulling something off on November 29th. Signing the one, the only Corey Seager on a 10-year, $325 million deal, the most expensive deal in franchise history. All of these deals had a combined value of $561 million spent on free agency. There was even a chance that they weren't done and would consider adding more talent. The player was Clayton Kershaw. The lifelong Dodger had hit free agency and was not a lock to return. Sure, he may have been with the Dodgers for forever, but life before LA was actually spent in Dallas as a Texas Rangers fan. He sat in free agency for roughly 6 months, half a year. He ultimately did return to the Dodgers, but this deal was so close to happening, and spoiler alert, later in the video, they got close to getting him again. But even though they didn't get him this time, they still landed a veteran pitcher in Martin Perez, who had actually at one point been a Texas Ranger in 2018. This, of course, marked the end of John Daniels' offseason for the player department. They were still far off from becoming a playoff contender. As we saw in the 2022 season, it was yet another disappointment. The Rangers finished 4th place in the AL West, almost lost 100 games, and were 38 games back in their division. A lot went wrong for this team. Superstar Marcus Semien was not a superstar. It took him 44 games to hit his first home run. He was only batting for 200. The team themselves were 36-38 by June, which wasn't good, but it was a lot better than what had happened in the past. They had a losing record in the month of June, and then blew 4 leads in the span of 10 games during July. They were at least improving, as on July 17th, in the first round on draft night, Texas heavily improved the roster.
Texas Rangers select Kumar Rocker, a right-handed pitcher from Farragut, Tennessee.
Interesting enough, this was the second time Kumar Rocker had been drafted into Major League Baseball. Kumar Rocker plays a major role in the Rangers organization, as we'll get into later. After July, this team began to decline and were 52-64 in 3rd place during August. Ownership became frustrated, fed up with this ball club and the way that things were being done. So ownership fired manager Chris Woodard after 4 years of being in charge. Off the field, they fired president of baseball ops, John Daniels. Ownership had high expectations after spending $500 million and saw the on-the-field product as a failure. After all, they hadn't been to the playoffs since 2016. Team owner Ray Davis even said, "The bottom line is we have not had a winning record since 2016, and for much of that time have not been competitive in the AL West division. While I am certain we are headed in the right direction, I feel a change in the leadership of the baseball operations department will be beneficial going forward." This, of course, left Chris Young to take over as the new president of the team. Owner Ray Davis even said, "Chris Young is one of the top young baseball executives in the business, and in his 21 months on the job has brought welcome energy and new ideas to the organization. I'm confident in Chris's ability to lead our baseball operations with the goal of producing a consistent winner on the field." But before getting to that consistent winner came the wrinkles of their 68 wins and the 94-loss season. Their problem was the pitching, ranking 22nd in ERA with a 4.22. As bad as they were, there was still at least one massive surprise in the rotation, with Martin Perez going to the All-Star game, something that no one expected. And from that, they even re-signed him on a one-year, $19 million contract. This marked the beginning of a front office setting a major focus and desire on adding pitching. That even includes superstar Jacob DeGrom, who they were in hot pursuit of, chasing him for a contract. And I mean, it makes sense. DeGrom is someone who once won the NL Rookie of the Year, has led the league in strikeouts twice, and won the NL Cy Young twice. From 2018 to 2021, his highest ERA was 2.43, his lowest was 1.08. He had injury problems throughout these seasons, and was rarely healthy, but regardless, was impressive when he did pitch. Simply, he would offer the Rangers a number one option for the rotation in any playoff game, in any must-win game, which is what they needed, leading to the Rangers doing this.
Rangers, the most talented pitcher in baseball for many, as I said, is now going to Texas, a team that is desperate for some starting pitching.
On December 2nd, the Rangers made the largest signing of the offseason, signing DeGrom to a 5-year, $185 million deal. The contract includes a 6-year player option that would make it $222 million in total. It was top dollar money, the second highest salary for a pitcher in league history. You could look at this deal one of two ways. 1, it's risky because of the injury history, or 2, the deal is worth it as long as he helps the team win in a postseason run. But one of the best pitchers in baseball was not enough, as they continued to delegate their money towards pitchers, leading them to signing star pitcher Andrew Heaney on a 2-year contract worth $25 million. As for the Rangers, the rotation was finally coming together with DeGrom, Heaney, Perez, and Gray. This left one spot open in the rotation, but not for long. Texas quickly signed the Boston Red Sox best pitcher Nathan Eovaldi on a 2-year deal worth $34 million. But if we look at both the pitchers they signed in close detail, DeGrom and Eovaldi both had injury problems just last year. DeGrom only pitched 10 starts and had been on the 60-day IL after suffering shoulder tightness. So were the Rangers prepared to build up their depth?
One of the things that we evaluated last season is that we feel pretty good about the depth, the options that we have in terms of our internal depth pieces. What we needed to add was a little more quality at the top of the rotation, and certainly we targeted that with our offseason signings.
Yet, after all of these signings, Texas was still missing one part to their ball club, one that needed to be filled immediately, their managerial position. So the question we all had was who would be the next big manager of the Texas Rangers? There had been 23 managers in their franchise history, from legendary hitter Ted Williams to a young Buck Showalter, all the way to 2022, when they officially hired their 24th manager, Bruce Bochy. Bruce Bochy had recently coached 3 championship teams during the 2010s when he was with San Francisco. His championship teams happen to have been built fully off of homegrown talent, obviously a clear distinction from where Texas was perceived to be headed. Bruce Bochy actually spoke about the comparisons and the differences of the championship teams that he had managed and the new Rangers team he was now going to manage.
Do you see a lot of potential similarities between that ball club and the Rangers here in the next year or two?
I do, and that's why I touched on, not just the core players, but how deep their system is, and that's how you not only, win, but sustain winning is those kids come up through your system, and I think they've done a great job.
Their offseason was nearing a conclusion, but there was still one more long shot that they hoped to pull off, which was trading for a switch-hitting left fielder in Brian Reynolds from the Pittsburgh Pirates. According to the New York Post, one team called the Pirates' asking price unrealistic. But if they traded for Reynolds, the outfield would consist of Reynolds in left field, Leody Taveras in center, and Adolis Garcia in right. Ultimately, Pittsburgh did not end up trading him, but it was a very fun hypothetical if it would have actually happened. This meant that the Rangers would roll out on opening day with this starting lineup and pitching rotation as they began the season.
On the mound for the Rangers, a four-time All-Star, two-time Cy Young Award winner, number 48, Jacob DeGrom.
Jacob DeGrom was not good in Game 1, pitching 3 innings and giving up 5 total runs. But the Rangers' offense was at least good enough to get them to a win. This was a tone setter with an 11-7 victory against the reigning National League champions. It was also the first time since 2020 that the Rangers had been above 500 with their win-loss ratio.
Low ranging back near the sidewall, scoops his glove, he makes the catch. Leaning over the tall railing.
Month 1 was a major success, finishing April 5 games above 500 at 16 wins and 11 losses. But just as things were moving on smoothly, this happened.
Breaking news here out of Arlington, Texas with the Texas Rangers. Jacob DeGrom, we talked about so much earlier in the show, will undergo Tommy John surgery to repair a tear in his UCL.
By May 8th, the Rangers scored 10 or more runs in an MLB leading 9 games. It was the most runs a team had scored through 33 games since entering the year 2000. By July, some were calling their offense the best offense in franchise history. Defensively, they were at the top of the league. On a pitching basis, Eovaldi was leading their rotation. Jose Leclerc was arguably their best bullpen arm. But their great July was about to become even greater.
With the 4th pick of the 2023 MLB Draft, the Texas Rangers select Wyatt Langford, an outfielder from the University of Florida.
Wyatt Langford was their new top draft pick selected at 3rd overall. And another cool fun fact is that this Rangers season was the first time since 1951 where we have seen 6 starting players from one team on the field at once in the MLB All-Star Game. This capped off that month. A month later, they had 61 wins and 46 losses. Due to DeGrom being out for the season and Eovaldi having injury problems, they desperately wanted help in the rotation. If there was any time for new president of baseball operations Chris Young to make a move to prove himself, it was now.
The Rangers have acquired 39-year-old, 3-time Cy Young Award-winning pitcher Max Scherzer from the New York Mets.
The Scherzer trade gave them a veteran to put at the top of the rotation to replace Jacob DeGrom. It is worth noting, though, that his ERA was a 4.01, which was simply unusual for a player of Scherzer's caliber. To acquire him, they had to trade away top prospect Ronald Acuna Jr.'s brother to the Mets, showing that the Rangers were in win-now mode rather than win later. A few hours after getting Scherzer, they acquired starting pitcher Jordan Montgomery and reliever Chris Stratton. Up to that point in the season, Montgomery had been pitching a 3.42 ERA. In fact, he had not gone past a 4 ERA since 2020. CBS Sports graded the trade and gave Texas an A. So now the rotation was complete with Scherzer, Montgomery, Heaney, Gray, and Perez. Not to mention that when Eovaldi returned, this rotation would become even better. Their trade deadline was nearly perfect, but then they made a very questionable trade. They acquired Aroldis Chapman in return for prospect Cole Ragans. Ragans was a pretty significant surprise because in hindsight, he ended up becoming a premier arm with Kansas City. The very last move that they made was catcher Austin Hedges from the Pittsburgh Pirates. The days went by. Texas went from 61-46 on the beginning of August to being 72-48 on August 15th, meaning that they won 11 games and only lost 2 games during that stretch. But throughout the next 18, things were about to get very interesting as the wheels completely came off. Texas lost 14 games and only won 4, leaving them with a record of 76-62, trailing the Astros by 2 games and even the Mariners by 1 game. With the 9th highest payroll in baseball, investing in a huge trade deadline, missing the playoffs would have been unacceptable. And the reason they were losing was obvious, as the bullpen was ranked 25th in baseball. Yes, Aroldis Chapman, the fastest pitcher in baseball, paid off in August with a 2.08 ERA. But he proceeded to follow that up in September by losing them a plunder of games. Tragically, the Rangers had no pitching depth because organizationally, they couldn't develop pitchers. The only pitcher who they did develop was Cole Ragans, the person who they traded for Chapman, who was pitching a 2.64 ERA in Kansas City. However, the good thing for Texas had been optimism and momentum building. For instance, Nathan Eovaldi was finally coming back from his injury. He had last pitched on July 18th and was coming back on September 5th against the Astros. Ultimately, when the day came, it seemed nothing was going right for Eovaldi. Nathan ended up going 1 inning, letting up 5 runs. But just when things were getting hard, something big happened. Someone got the call at the big leagues.
Carter has his first major league hit tonight.
The young 21-year-old Evan Carter was a hitting machine. While they may have taken him at 50th overall in 2020, he never even cracked MLB's top 200 list or even Baseball America's top 500 players for power rankings. But one man noticed him. Someone who worked with the Rangers in 1992 as an area scout and worked his way up to becoming the lead man on the 14 Rangers drafts in a row for the team. When they drafted Carter, this scout said it was not a hard pick in the second round at all. The conviction we had as a group, how good we felt, it's one of the most unanimous decisions we've had. Everyone loved the kid. By the time he got the call-up, Carter was the 8th best player in minor league baseball and hit for a .306 batting average in 246 games in his minor league career. He was instantly going to make their offense better, but their pitching still was encountering problems. Like on September 13th, when Max Scherzer suffered a muscle strain. He was going to be injured during the final weeks of the regular season, so it was unlikely he would actually pitch in the playoffs. The divisional race came down to the final few days between the Houston Astros and the Arlington Rangers. All the Rangers had to do was win their final game. The Rangers pitching was doing everything they could to win, giving up 1 run all game long. But the offense couldn't spark a late inning rally, making them fall to 90 and 72, tied with Houston for the division. So to decide who actually won the battle, they measure head-to-head records against each other. Houston had a record of 9-4 against the Rangers, giving Houston the division win and a wildcard bye week. The regular season was over, but a lot of things had gone right for the Rangers. Evan Carter made himself useful, hitting for a .306 average with 5 homers in 23 regular season games. Josh Young was also an AL Rookie of the Year contender, finishing the season 4th in AL voting for the award. But by far their best player was Corey Seager, who hit for a .327 average and a ridiculous 1,000 OPS. In the playoffs, Texas had to play on the road in Tampa Bay against one of the best ball clubs in the league. The Tampa Bay Rays had 99 wins, with many veterans, many young players with a solid manager. In Game 1, Montgomery pitched. In Game 2, Eovaldi pitched. So, the series opened with Montgomery pitching a gem against the Rays, going 7 innings and no runs. This put the pressure on Eovaldi to seal the series in Game 2. Most people believed he would struggle. However, Eovaldi had been great in the postseason in the past with a .314 ERA and 41 strikeouts in 11 appearances. And that version of Eovaldi is what we got.
Bochy takes the ball from Eovaldi. Magnificent.
They got the series win. They were onto the juggernaut Baltimore Orioles, the same team that led the AL in wins with 101. The singular advantage Texas had over Baltimore was experience. Rangers manager Bruce Bochy was a 3-time World Series winner, with all of them being within the last 13 years. So in Game 1, 2, and 3, the Rangers dominated completely, leaving the Orioles stunned, and the Rangers 5-0 in the postseason, moving on into the ALCS. This set up one of the best series of the entire season, the Rangers versus the Astros, marking the 7th time in a row that the Astros were in the ALCS, and also marking the 14th matchup between these two teams all year. In Game 1 and 2, much of the same happened in Texas, with Montgomery and Eovaldi both dominating. Jordan went 6 innings, no runs. Eovaldi went 6 innings, 3 runs. Both games went in the win column for the Rangers, giving them more momentum.
What'd you think of the game?
It was bad. Even from the start, it was so bad.
You're laughing.
What?
You're laughing about it, though.
Yeah, because it was so bad.
This series was nearly as good as over. A long-awaited Max Scherzer return was imminent for Game 3, making everyone wonder, was he gonna perform or would he collapse under the pressure? And of course, just like everyone expected, he did not play well. Scherzer let up 5 innings, gave up 5 hits and 5 runs. The only actual upside for Max was striking out 4 total batters, leading all pitchers that game. They had now lost, and Game 4 was a disaster, not any better than the last game. They gave up 10 runs in a completely uncompetitive fashion, letting Houston tie the series at 2-2. So at this point, the Rangers became desperate and needed Jordan to pitch a masterclass in Game 5. But in the 9th inning, this happened.
High fly ball to deep left field. Back to the wall. It's the moment again. Astros lead in the ninth.
After dropping Game 5, they were 1 game away from elimination. Eovaldi went 6 innings, 2 runs, they won the game, tying the series and forced a Game 7, the last game of the series. Whoever won next was going to the World Series.
Garcia gets up on it, drives it to left, back it goes. A ball. Carter read it well. Here he comes.
The Rangers opened a wound from the get-go, taking an explosive 2-0 lead. Bochy went all in for this one, with pitchers like Scherzer, Montgomery entering the game, or even Chapman, Leclerc from the bullpen. Regardless of what the pitching did, the offense made it bound for Texas to win, putting up 11 runs, sending Arlington back to the World Series. Their opponent was the Arizona Diamondbacks, a team that only won 84 games, barely snuck into the playoffs, and were viewed as heavy underdogs. Similar to the Rangers, they had to face some of the toughest teams in baseball. Out of all the teams that had 95 wins and up, the Rangers and D-backs faced all of them but one. So based on the adversity to get to the championship the final round, they were both about to play unbelievable. And remember, the Rangers were undefeated playing on the road this postseason. Once again in Game 1, that streak continued. But after that game, Seager, along with the entire team, completely lost who they were in Game 2. The offense scored 1 run, the pitching let up 9, ultimately wasting a Montgomery start. In Game 3, it wouldn't get any easier, it would actually get harder. Adolis Garcia suffered an injury that would keep him out the rest of the series. After setting a postseason record with 22 RBIs, losing Garcia hurt badly. And on top of losing him, Scherzer went down with an injury that would make him miss the rest of the series. Yet, somehow, they won Game 3, Game 4, making them 1 win from the championship.
In their 63rd season. It's happened! The Texas Rangers win the World Series! And ladies and gentlemen, for the first time ever, your world champion, Texas Rangers.
Seager won the World Series MVP, becoming the 4th player in league history to win the MVP twice. He led their entire offense that series, and to add on to everything, Bruce Bochy became the 6th manager in MLB history to reach 4 World Series titles. As a team, the Rangers became the 3rd to win the World Series just 2 years after losing 100 games. On a player basis, Evan Carter was an animal that postseason. Not only did he have a .917 OPS in the playoffs, but he was the youngest player since Mickey Mantle to hit 3rd in Game 1 of the World Series.
Lastly, I heard you talking about a party. Is there going to be a party going on?
Oh, we're going to drink. We're going to drink till we drown.
Texas was world champions, with one of the best rosters in baseball, filled with youth and veterans. On a foundational level, Semien had years left under contract, while Jonah Heim, Adolis Garcia, and Nathaniel Lowe were all under contract until at least 2026. This core group of players, combined with Bruce Bochy's top experience, provided complete stability for their future. Sure, a back-to-back World Series winner hadn't happened in over 20 years, but that also meant it was due to happen. They had the tools to repeat and win again. A full season of Evan Carter was going to break in 2024. If he was able to play at all like he did in the postseason and carry that into the 2024 regular season, he would be their next superstar. Same could be said for their top first rounder, Wyatt Langford, who was on his way to debuting. Plus, with another year of experience, Josh Young was anticipating being even better. Don't forget that Seager and Semien were both still in the prime of their careers and had just finished 2nd and 3rd in the AL MVP voting. As for the AL West overall as a division, the Angels were bound to lose Shohei Ohtani in free agency, weakening the division. The team was surely built to win, but the offseason was not easy. It started with Jordan Montgomery hitting free agency. They wouldn't have won the World Series without him, and many saw him as a crucial re-sign. However, the front office had concerns, believing that the return of DeGrom and Scherzer in 2024 might make retaining Montgomery unnecessary. It was said Montgomery was seeking a multi-year deal making hundreds of millions of dollars. Additionally, during these negotiations, the Rangers were aware of the possibility that they could lose out on millions of dollars due to their TV deal with Bally Sports potentially falling apart. The original agreement was $111 million per season, but due to bankruptcy, that number was very likely going to drop significantly, limiting the amount of money that they could spend. Being above Major League's luxury tax in 2023 also meant losing more money. By the end of free agency and spring training, he officially signed a one-year deal worth $25 million. They instead went with the option at pitcher of Tyler Mahle and Michael Lorenzen. Last but not least, they lost an important catcher/DH, Mitch Garver, to a division rival Seattle Mariners team and really didn't plan on signing anyone to replace his production. Instead, they would rely off of hitters like Evan Carter and Wyatt Langford. This Rangers team was not going to be the same team as 2023. Entering 2024, the Rangers rotation was weakened. Eovaldi, Gray, Heaney, Dunning, and Bradford, they missed that superstar of a Scherzer, a DeGrom, or a Montgomery even. While Eovaldi had been a good pitcher, let's not forget about his health concerns. According to preseason predictions by ESPN, Houston was projected to win the division with 14 votes, whereas the Rangers came in second with 8 votes. But from spring training and onward, things actually got exciting. Wyatt Langford was a standout in the spring, slashing .365 with 6 homers and 20 RBIs. The team started the season strong, winning series against both the Cubs and the Rays, and they ended April with a 16-14 record. But in those 14 losses, cracks were beginning to show all around. Nathaniel Lowe described it as, "It's like you're showing up expecting to win, but all 29 other teams know you were the previous winner. They want to come at you." On April 3rd, Josh Young suffered a fractured wrist, forcing him to miss 103 total games. Jack Leiter, a promising young pitcher and former first-rounder, made his MLB debut on August 18th, but struggled, allowing 7 runs in his first ever appearance. And after April, the Rangers had back-to-back losing months, finishing 6 games under 500 in both May and June. The culprit of injuries in 2024 was hurting. Eovaldi was suffering from groin tightness. It lingered with him all year. Several bullpen arms also suffered the same fate. On May 28th, the worst happened. The future rising star Evan Carter got hurt, forcing him to miss time on the field. By July 1st, the Rangers were already in a tough spot with a 37-46 record, falling behind in the AL West. By the trade deadline on July 30th, the Rangers were 52-55. Still, the Rangers believed in their roster and made moves to bolster their team. They traded starting pitcher Michael Lorenzen for reliever Walter Pennington, a young arm with years of control under contract. They continued to look for ways to shore up the bullpen, acquiring Andrew Chafin from the Tigers. But for their last trade, it was acquiring catcher Carson Kelly to provide a spark that Jonah Heim hadn't been giving the team. On August 6th, Tyler Mahle finally made his Rangers debut, but his return was short-lived as he got injured after just a few starts. 9 days later, they were 56-66, having gone 3-11 since the trade deadline. The Rangers' struggles weren't just limited to the injuries, at least according to President Chris Young. According to him, players like Adolis Garcia, Jonah Heim, Leody Taveras, and Ezekiel Duran all failed to make an impact like they had the year prior. Despite their struggles, Marcus Semien still believed in himself and his team, saying, "Last year, we snuck in the playoffs and won the World Series. Right now, we're in the regular season trying to do something similar." Bruce Bochy remained optimistic and somewhat confused, saying, "I think there have been a lot of people surprised, and they should be with what we did last year." As much potential as they did have, Corey Seager went down with an injury. Jacob DeGrom made his long-awaited return, but Scherzer ended up getting hurt once again on September 21st. The rest of the pitching staff was not successful. Highly touted prospect Jack Leiter posted a rough 8.33 ERA in 35 innings. Or you can look at seasoned veteran Dane Dunning, who had a 5.17 ERA. But let's not get it twisted, the lineup was just as guilty for all of the losing. Their 78-84 record would not have been so bad if they weren't 18th in runs scored and 24th in ERA. In 2024, the Rangers had a .238 batting average, 176 homers, and averaged 4.2 runs a game, which was drastically down from the year prior. We saw a young Evan Carter go from being a future superstar to hitting for a 188 batting average. The team's veterans also struggled, as Marcus Semien had his worst season as a Ranger, posting a .699 OPS with a .237 average and 27 homers. Garcia had a terrible year himself with a .224 batting average. The only veteran to perform was Corey Seager. He was actually the only player in the lineup to hit for an 800 OPS or higher. As hard as this season was, Chris Young was extended by ownership to stay president of the team. For good reason too. It's not like he could have prevented the Rangers of having the 6th most days on the injured list in the season. In fact, they had 23 players injured, worth $97 million, and 1,924 total days were missed because of injury. Despite a disappointing 2024 and injured 2024, there were still at least some positive takeaways with the younger players. Kumar Rocker debuted and looked solid. Wyatt Langford may have struggled overall, but he won the AL Player of the Month in September. As they went beyond 2024, players needed to get healthy, and the entire core had to bounce back or they would face the consequence. Yet in 2025, they were 81-81, just as mediocre as ever. Going forward, the only 2 hitters who look like stars are Corey Seager and Wyatt Langford. 6 of their starting hitters had below a 700 OPS. The Rangers lineup was brutal. Over the last few weeks, their Hall of Famer manager Bruce Bochy mutually agreed to end his tenure as manager. They replaced him with Skip Schumacher, who was the manager of the year a few years ago with the Marlins. Truly, there's no clear picture for the Rangers in 2026, but this is the story of how they got here.